Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a level 60 DEADRINGER build for Vex in Borderlands 4. Now, this build's fun because we're taking what we've done already with groundbreaker and Reverburnations, and we're taking up a whole other level because we now have level 60, so we can do some crazy stuff here, like use the space laser, use the mantra, and even the new crazed earl weapon is pretty crazy on a build like this. You got the throwable daggers there, which you can see take out pretty much the entire health bar. Stacking that groundbreaker damage is insane. And we're now able to come down further in the green skill tree, which is fun because we're able to trigger our kill skills like some other Vex builds, with things like grave implements giving ourselves upwards of 120% gun damage, which is nice because we have specializations which can add that back onto our melee damage on the mantra, as well as do things like the I am a gun, adding it onto our action skills. So the Reapers are actually effective in combat. This is a build I've been playing around with for a while here. Having more levels on Vex is amazing because we're able to get a little bit further and obviously take advantage of the very powerful Reverburnation skill that combos with Hara specs very well. And the new pearlescent weapon, the crazed earl, is a lot of fun on this build because whenever you melee targets, the shards will explode and go to another target, and the damage on this thing is actually pretty solid. And you don't need the DLC to actually do this build, but if you have it, there are some new weapons like the hemorrhage that are really fun on this. Now, starting off at level 1, the DEADRINGER build is actually the one that I used during my first playthrough, and it is very strong. However, you can get a good mileage out of going into the green skill tree because things like grave implements and grave sights are such massive boosts to your overall damage. So you can check out one of my green skill trees if you want to have an easier time if you're in the early game. But when we're on later on, we need buffs to our melee damage, as that's a big portion of our damage, especially from our minions. So Fell Inscriptions is going to give us that 35% bonus, our extra melee damage and maximum health capacity, which is great because this lets us use some other skills here. And unfortunately, a lot of these gun damage or elemental effect damage increases are not really applicable. Now, I've done builds in the past where you can utilize the specters here and shoot, and even use things like the gaster bait here and make them use a heavy ordnance, but we're just going to go with the sanguine fiends here. What's great about this is it's a kill skill. Later on, we're going to be going with the mortal terror here when we'll have a chance to activate our kill skills when critically hitting enemies. And this is amazing because there's so many kill skills in Vex's skill tree that just get activated very easy. And this is going to give us health back. So we can take ourselves off of using the Teen Witch class mod for once, and there's actually a really good one from Bloom Reaper that works here to increase the skill damage on our minions here. And after we get those down, we're going to then go Grave Fiends. This is the best in the early levels here for Vex. Grave Fiends will give ourselves increased damage dealt, and it applies on our minions and ourselves. If we could have got Grave Quickening earlier, this is nice. I wish it was lower in the skill tree. After this, we're going to come down. Burning Attunement kind of sucks. You can go with it because the increased crit damage is nice if you're using fire weapons, but there's not a lot of great fire weapons, and being stuck to a single damage type isn't great. Recurrence, though, it works for everyone. It works for us. It works for our minions. This is kind of like Riddle You This, the specialization is going to give yourself gun damage per stack, and it also applies to our minions as well, much like Riddle You This also does. Afterwards, as mentioned, Reverburnations. This is the best skill in Vex's skill tree by far. Melee damage dealt by Vex or her minions will have a chance to deal incendiary melee damage. This is crazy because there's so many things that benefit from melee damage, but also this is a skill, so it can actually take a lot of the damage. And you could actually get a class mod for Vex, a purple one that's going to give a +5 to this. That'd probably be the best roll just because of how crazy the skill is. And since we don't really need to use the Team Witch as much, because our minions will tank a little bit for us as well. Now you can go full fire build here. I just don't think it's as optimal. We do want to have 1 point in higher specs here because this is a melee override, which lets us throw a dagger. And this is great because it can trigger our groundbreaker really easily. And you can put some more points into this if you'd like, or even take the pincushion, which throws 5 daggers from both hands in a fan pattern. This does have a short, like you'll have to kill 3 enemies to get this back. It is a nice boost in the overall damage, but I found that even just one single one here is more than enough because we can focus more in the green skill tree, which gives us a huge benefit. Now, Grave Sights is such a crazy skill, giving ourselves increased critical hit damage and gun handling, which is nice as well, but it's the crit damage we want. We're also going to take Grave Implements here, another kill skill that we can activate easily in a moment, and this is giving us increased gun damage up towards 120% when we have 6 stacks. And we're going to have 6 stacks with Grave Power. And then Target Prescience is, I got that from the class mod here, but Bloodletter is such a crazy skill that we typically want to have this on as many setups as possible. Guns and skill critical hits will have a chance to apply bleed, which means that our DEADRINGER can also apply bleed. It's great. It's also considered a status effect. You do want to max this out, but early on you can just go with the 2 points, as this is going to take us to the next one. Keen Mind. Typically I like Drink Full. This will give you increased fire rate, but we don't have infinite ammo, so this kind of is harder to use. And I think a Keen Mind ends up being better because that means that our minions are going to be critically hitting, and they're also going to get the Reverburnations increase in damage. So this is the few times that I actually think Keen Mind works very well here. And we're not going to be going with one of the specializations later on, but we're going to grab Mortal Terror. Even a 5% chance is incredible when you consider that we have many weapons that can shoot really fast or multiple projectiles and trigger our kill skills quickly. So Mortal Terror is nice because that's going to give us the minion damage boost from our blue skill tree. It's also going to give ourselves some health. And this is really nice because it keeps our minions sustained, which is kind of hard without this skill. Afterwards, we can go... Actually, Grave Imp elements here will give our minions elemental damage for a duration, and this is a kill skill with 10 stacks. It's nice, harder to upkeep. I like the Ars Arcana here because this is going to increase our skill damage. So we'd max out our Bloodletter because this bleed is considered a skill. So going with bleed into Ars Arcana is going to not only increase our minions damage by 45%, but also increase our Bloodletter damage as well. So this is really powerful. In the level cap increase, this means we can actually then go ahead with Bloodshot here, and I can see some sniper rifle with some shotgun builds going crazy. A lot of potential there. Now you can take 1 point out of Ars Arcana, and there is a really good kill skill here, Guns and Needles, which gives you your Repkit back. Again, this is gonna be nice whenever Bloodshot gets a little bit more accessible for this build. Now for the Augment and Capstone, we got to take Grim Reaper here. I don't love Grim Reaper. I actually really like Dark Pact. This gives you 2 augments, which is nice because you can grab Coven and Hellish Harvest. If you really didn't want Reverburnations, but you really do, you could go with the Obedient Fiends into Ancient Rites and then focus more on the target or the minion damage. But that'd be better on lower Vault Hunter levels, where Reverburnations is so crazy we almost have to include it. But for our best augment, Hellish Harvest is really good. Again, paired with Coven is nice because whenever you spawn in a Reaper, it's going to give yourself health regeneration. But this is going to give them a spinning attack that they do, and that actually will give them health back, which is 15% per hit, which is pretty solid because if there's multiple enemies around, they can hit a lot of them. And this is pretty solid. Now for the class mod, you can go with the Teen Witch if you want to get that overshield, because this is just so crazy. You can keep one on standby for certain bosses. You may find that having that extra sustain is nice, but we have the new one, or not new, the one from Gloom Reaper here, the Misery Cord. This will give your phase daggers a chance to ricochet, but what we really care about is critical hits will give a stack of misery, which increases your skill damage, and this stacks up to 50 times, and that is extremely useful whenever we got our minions there, getting a big boost to their overall damage. Now, there's other options, like you could go with like the Bloodshot Vex. I really enjoy that one. Using the Undead Eye and using a sniper rifle here is pretty effective. You can actually get some pretty crazy damage from that. There's also the Scion, which is great. Bloodletter plus the increased kinetic damage can be effective if you're going with like a sniper rifle build. Vex also has the new class mod Configuration. I don't love this one, but you can use things with like very strong underbarrels as they're going to take the damage from that, as it's based on the current weapon whenever it's spawned in. I just think this one here is pretty solid because we're going to be focusing on crits, and this can give you multiple rolls into increased critical hit damage, which is insane because we're really gunning for that. So kill skill, critical hit damage, and gun handling, that gives ourselves upwards of 27 per stack. If you had a class mod with a +5, that's 180% extra critical hit damage and gun handling, so you're extremely accurate and hitting like a truck, so that can be very effective as well. I just like this because Ars Arcana actually gives us a lot of skill damage increases, and this one will give us that even further, but the Teen Witch is very good as well because this will give your minions lifesteal as well if you get the roll that has the Grave Thirst here. So this can be pretty insane because especially if you get multiple rolls into that, because the lifesteal is a kill skill, so we activated it has 6 stacks, and the lifesteal you get is actually pretty insane, so you can keep your minions out for a very long time. It's between those two depending on what you prefer going with. Now for the shield, Watts for Dinner. This is just the best shield in the game, unfortunately. This is better with like the Teen Witch because if you get the amp roll on it, that does some pretty crazy stuff. You can even go with the Timekeeper's new shield. Since we got the health increase, it's just nice to be focusing mostly on your health and using any type of lifesteal that you can get from that. Fireworks, if you're mobbing, is the best shield for that. And also going with the Heavyweight here. So on melee, hit consumes an armor segment to grant 100% melee damage, and when the armor segment is empty, grants 50% melee damage. The Missile Swarm on this is really nice too, and also the Spunky there gives you further increased damage. This can be pretty heavy of a hitter, but I still think Watts for Dinner just ends up edging it out most circumstances. Now, for our enhancement, this really depends. If you want to go with like a Jacob's Ricochet one, then going with the blind box for the increased ricochets is nice. I'm a big fan of the stud finder. There's two really good Torg pistols, and I like Torg weapons, and they're pretty great in this game. So if you got the new Scoot and Shoot, this is insane whenever you're using that, or the Shalashaska, which comes from the last DLC packs. If you don't have those, that's fine. You don't have to use the stud finder. You can use easily the Jacob's ones. Since we're focusing on crits and getting crazy damage off of our crits, getting a chance to get crits on non-crits, and I'm saying the crit word a lot. Any of these works great with the Jacob's one. Even the Vladov can be nice too if you want to use Vladov and use something like the Wombo combo for the extra projectiles. It can be very devastating. Now, I really like the critical hit knife because we're, again, looking for crits. So if you can guarantee it by throwing 3 of these, that is really nice. There's also, you can use the things like the Slippy here, which is melee damage. So that can be nice to be able to detonate that. There's a lot of fun ones out there, but in all honesty, the critical hit knife just ends up being great for single target damage. Otherwise, Slippy works well too. For our Repkit, triple bypass, especially with Leech, I like to go with that roll there. You can also go with one that's got like the Enrage for increased damage dealt. This does make you take more damage, but it's pretty effective. And then there's also like the tank if you really want to, but going with the Leech is one that I really like going with, especially if you're not using the Teen Witch. The Teen Witch can be crazy though because of how long your minions last. And finally, we got ourselves our firmware. Going with the 3 into high caliber lets your bullets pierce. This is great for mobbing in general. Honestly, the best firmware would be Skillcraft, which is one of the newer ones. It's the most annoying in the game to farm, so I don't like using it because firmware is just such a pain to move around until they actually change how firmware works. And if they don't, then yeah, it's just annoying to move those all around every time that you want to do anything. But you can even go with the 3 Deadeye 2 high calibers to make it simple and work for all types of builds. Now for our weapons, I'm going to first start off with ones from the new DLC pack and then go on to base game ones. The Crazed Earl is pretty solid. It gets the damage override here. It can have some pretty insane damage numbers at level 60 with like 27k here. It is the BOGO, so fire shards that go stick on enemies, and meleeing those enemies will explode the shards and move them to a nearby target. This can be really good on certain bosses when you have 2 big health bars, and you can also get Jacobs and Ripper parts on this. Now there's also the Scoot and Shoot, which is insane. You can get Jacobs and Ripper on that. I just haven't seen it. It's very powerful and it can shoot multiple ghost guns. Although it doesn't find itself being the most effective here, it's still pretty good. The new Crow Source is also pretty solid for an override or an order gun. It shoots really quickly and damage from this is pretty solid. I'm also a big fan of the Flash Cyclone from the new DLC pack. You can get Jacob and Ripper on it, and even the Falker weapon here is pretty solid. And from the last DLC pack, as mentioned, Shalashaska is probably the craziest weapon in the game. You had to fire it multiple times to get the projectiles to scale up, and then you use the stud finder and the damage is nuts. I also want to mention the Rooker Sniper. This underbarrel is pretty fun too on any boss. It's got a blue health bar. Now, into the base game weapons, I'm a big fan of the Bonnie and Clyde, especially since we don't have infinite ammo. This refills the ammo by swapping between the two of them. This is a weapon that is extremely underrated, and the damage that you can get from this is actually absurd. The assault rifle is stronger than the shotgun, but you use the shotgun to take out a trash mob, switch to the assault rifle, blast it into the boss lost most of his health. This is an insane weapon. The Oscar Mike, this has the fastest damage build up for Groundbreaker with the space laser there. You can also go with the fiery version, but it's just not as good. This is a crazy weapon. I would prefer not to have it with the Ripper, but it is what it is. And the Mantra, this is from Bloom Reaper. This is probably the most effective weapon in most builds because of how silly specializations like the Bare Arms work. Because anytime you get a gun damage increase, like for example, Rafa, who can get 700% gun damage increase, it will actually take half of that and add it back onto this gun. Because this gets buffs from gun damage and melee damage, so it double dips really hard and it hits like a truck. And this is also melee damage, so it's really good because you're going to want to use that pretty frequently. If you're going with the Bloodshot route, the XXL is really nice here. And even the new Hemorrhage, a sniper rifle is pretty crazy here. It shoots really fast and you can do this from long range. It's actually pretty fun to use and honestly solid. I also like the TK's Wave with the, if you can get that with Jacobs and Ripper, that's the best roll for it. As mentioned earlier, Wombo combos are a really good one option as well. And finally, I'm going to recommend the Dark Beast. And if you can find with the shotgun, that's the best roll. Now for our specializations, Bare Arms, if you're using the Mantra, because that takes, basically they'll get 1.5 times any gun damage increases, so very good. And riddle you this, because that's a gun damage increase, so on your shotgun, or on your Mantra, it's 75% extra gun damage, pretty cool. Groundbreaker is probably the most essential here. Gun, action skill, and ordnance damage is stored. Melee attacks and slams will deal bonus kinetic damage based on stored damage and consume it. That's why I like to take just the one stack of the knife, because you can throw this from range, trigger this, and then boom, the health bar is gone. This is from all action skill, gun, and ordnance damage. Basically, we want to try and get as much damage in a 5-second window as possible, because that's going to 20% of that's getting stored. And if we can trigger that again, it can do some pretty crazy stuff, considering all the skills that we got that are boosting up our damage. We also got I'm a Gun 2, which is going to give ourselves increased damage. I like Honed Mind, which gives action skill, critical hit damage, and chance, which is really good. You could run that over the I'm a Gun, but yeah, I still think that this ends up being a little bit higher damage in the run of it. You could take off Bare Arms if you didn't want to use the mantra, and then throw that on. Now, when it comes to combat, we want to get our Reapers in. They will get that health regeneration. If you're using the Team Witch, you also get that here. The Space Laser is typically something that we want to be throwing on the ground as early as possible, because that's going to give ourselves that groundbreaker damage. So you can see they're doing some crazy stuff, and you throw your dagger there, it triggers it, and it just deletes the boss quickly. Now, we want to try and keep as many of the mobs away from our little minions here, because when we have things like the Bonnie and Clyde here, which we want to take out an enemy with this and then swap to our assault rifle, because the damage increase from that becomes pretty insane there. And then we can go ahead with things like our minions there, or I didn't even use the Grim Reaper, but we want to pop that in there, and then we can just try to get a large, if you ever see a big drop in the target's health bar, that's the time to then use your any type of damage that's going to trigger our groundbreaker there, and even bring out the mantra. And another thing is, whenever we're pulling these out, we want to get the critical hit knife onto whatever our target is as soon as possible, because again, those crits are just going to be so impactful there. And then we can go ahead with our guns like the Crazed Earl here, which again is going to get some benefits off of melee damage, and then we can swap over to the mantra. I got Ripper parts on both of these, which is not super ideal, but you can see there the damage from it is pretty crazy. I swapped those to be that. Yeah, they're still solid. Another thing I should mention is if you can get a Stray that's got the target marker as well with Ripper and Jacobs, this is one of the best weapons, because that target marker, it can come on multiple different guns, but on the Stray is nice. And again, we always want to just summon in the Reapers there. So then I was able to put that onto the boss there. You can see a pretty crazy amount of critical hits just using the Stray here. It's such a good weapon. And then we can bring out our mantra. Oh, that exploded. The mantra is splash damage, so sometimes it's weird and it can end up like bouncing back. It hit the enemy that was behind me and it exploded on me there. And even with a couple of the Reapers here, you're still going to do some pretty solid damage. We're trying to get that groundbreaker to get triggered as much as possible. So it's about us doing large bursts of damage and then going in with our melee override here. So boom, we got that there. And then that dagger will trigger the Crazed Earl there. So yeah, this is building off what we've already done with the minions. But now that we got 10 more levels, it can go even crazier. And some of the fun new weapons like Crazed Earl work great on this build. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. This was a requested build, so let me know which of the Borderlands 4 character skill trees you'd like to see next, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Have a great day.